Okay, I guess this is a good time to begin as any. Hello, my name is Christopher Michalski. I'm a resident here in Savannah. I am the treasurer and co-founder of Coastal Georgia for Democracy, the local chapter of Indivisible, which is a grassroots movement of thousands of groups nationwide with a mission to elect progressive leaders, rebuild our democracy, and defeat the Trump agenda. And incidentally, it is Coastal Georgia for Democracy who organized and funded this event. We are completely volunteer-based and can always use your support to keep events like this happening. So please consider donating money or time to us. You can do so by visiting our website, coastaldemocracy.org. There are QR codes out there that will direct you to sign up for our list. There's a lot of ways that you can follow us and support us, so please make sure you do that. We are here this evening to exercise our democratic rights, our freedom to assemble and to govern ourselves. We've invited a number of candidates for the government offices that represent us to hear their thoughts on the current state of Georgia and the country as a whole, particularly given the July passage of the sweepingly influential budget reconciliation bill, H.R. 1, which I will hereafter call OBA, since I refuse to dignify it with its ridiculous name.
Thank you.
That law, though, fundamentally transforms the country in numerous ways, cutting health insurance for millions, rolling back bedrock environmental protections, and severely damaging Georgia's clean energy economy, adding trillions to our deficit while slashing vital public services like Medicaid, and massively increasing ICE funding to levels higher than Israel's military budget. Along with these and other massive changes, we are also facing continuing inflation and increased costs due to the president's whimsical and wide-ranging tariffs. So another reason we are gathered here is just to be with our community, to be with those suffering under this administration's wantonly cruel policies, to support each other and regroup, to maintain a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So I want to thank you again so much for being here, particularly given our forced location change. It's very nice though. Before we begin, let me just tell you about the format for this evening. First of all, although two of our honored guests currently hold office, this forum is about our community meeting future candidates for public office, in particular for governor, for the Public Service Commission, for U.S. House District 1, for Georgia House District 165, and for Port Wentworth City Council. We're here to talk about the future and what we can do to protect ourselves. Indeed, I'm heartened that 3 of our guests are seeking public office for the first time, because it speaks to this moment of regular members of our community stepping forward to try to fix this. Second, the format is as follows. After introductions from the candidates themselves, I will ask a set of 3 questions addressed to all of the candidates. After each question, each candidate has an opportunity to respond for up to 90 seconds. After those questions, I will open up the floor to questions from 4 specific candidates from the audience. At around 7:45, we will end the question and answer session, and each candidate may give closing remarks for no more than 2 minutes. So at this time, I ask each of our distinguished guests to introduce themselves for no more than 2 minutes, telling us a little bit about themselves, the office they are running for, and why they seek it.
Typically, ladies go first.
It's very good. It's very good. We will start then, if that's okay with you. This one.
Are our mics on? Hi, my name.
Your mic's not on.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
One more time.
Test. Hello.
Testing.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Hi, my name is Kendra Clark. I'm running for Georgia House District 165 in 2026. And I'm running for office because I feel like too many of our elected officials haven't really been advocating for us, for like regular, average, working class people. And, so I look around Savannah, I see too many people who can't afford housing, can't afford groceries, just don't have health care at all because it's so inaccessible. I've been here in Savannah for 14 years. I love this town and I want to help make it better. During my time here, I found a lot of different opportunities to give back to my community. I currently am one of the co-chairs for Savannah DSA. I am the founder and run the Host a City Mutual Aid page, where we keep the public abreast of all the different mutual aid events happening in Savannah. I also founded She Networks, which is a women's networking social. Ran that for 4 years with Planned Parenthood Young Leaders. I'm just always trying to find ways to give back to my community, and I want to continue doing that at the state level.
Good evening, everyone. I am Gabby Nelson. I'm affectionately known as Gabby. I will talk. So I'll try not to do that too much this evening, but I ran for city council just right about 4 years ago, pregnant with my third child, and very excited to change the future for my children and for everyone else's children. So similar to your quest, Kendra, I think that we need a lot of work on the local level, and I do not mean that to be offensive to our statewide candidates this evening, but it starts here at home. We need people that, really are on the ground, the boots on the ground, the parents in the car rider line, the people who actually understand what we need to see, what our children need, what parks we need, what access to healthcare we need. Those are things that we're doing in the city of Port Wentworth. I've been very grateful to be a part of the last 4 years, very excited to prayerfully be reelected November the 4th. Just a bit about me personally. I know I mentioned I have kids. I have 3. I have Marissa, Maverick, and Sire. So a 14-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old who keep me on my toes when the other 16,000 citizens do not. So I never get a break. I do not mean that in a way to steer you guys from contacting me if you ever have questions or concerns about the city of Port Wentworth, but I'm excited about what I do, and I'm grateful for what I do. So look forward to continuing to serve you guys and answering any questions you have this evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My voice is a little cracked, so just be patient with me. I'm gonna get through it. I might sound like Kermit the Frog for a little bit, but my name is Amanda Hollowell, and I live in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm working to be your congresswoman. I chose Savannah, Georgia almost 20 years ago to bring my son here and to enter him into public education. And I thank all those teachers from Largo Tibet to Southwest Middle to H.B. Jenkins, go Warriors, who brought him where he is today at the University of Tulsa pursuing his graduate degree. When I think about that life here and how much this community has given back to me, I always remembered when I moved here, I wanted to be a servant to my community. And for those last 20 years, I've been organizing this community around women's rights, voting rights, healthcare access. I remember going door to door, to church, talking about organ donation, making sure people were registered to vote, making sure people knew that they needed to go vote. And it just really clicked to me that this is a community that deserves better representation. This is a community that deserves to know that someone is advocating and fighting for them at the Capitol. And beyond that, this is a community that needs someone from the community. I moved my father here 4 years ago from California to be his full-time caretaker. I'm now moving my mother here in 2 months. I have family members who left California who live here, and we have embraced this community, and this community has embraced us. And I think about my nephew who's 10 years old, who goes to Windsor Forest Elementary, and I was doing the parent line, I failed. Yesterday, I'm rusty. My baby, 23. It was rough. And I think about those parents, in that line and what they want for their children, right? Everyone wants to make sure their kids can come back home, that they have a stable job that actually pays for their living wage, right? I always hear from folks who say, I want my child to come back and get my home, but if Savannah and the Coastal District cannot support them, where does the home go?
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay.
It's not on.
I might have to bring it closer.
I love the tech.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Alicia Johnson, and I am a native Savannian, born and raised here, a product of public schools, and have spent the last 30 years of my entire professional career working in the intersection of policy and community impact. I've done everything from being the grant writer and strategic planner for the school district to the public information officer, the first public information officer for the Eastern Judicial Circuit. I've served the city in its poverty alleviation programming and have done that work statewide and regionally. But I've also worked statewide to increase access and programming for over 600,000 Medicaid lives in Georgia. So I'm intimately aware of what those challenges look like county by county and all 159 of them. I have likely touched foot or tire down into each of them. I am running for the Public Service Commission because I understand that even though I don't really care for politics, I understand that politics influence policy and policy touches our pocketbooks. And without good people-centered policy, we will not move this country or our community forward. And so I want to ensure that even at the regulatory level, that we are driving people-centered policy for our state.
Good evening, Coastal Georgia. Good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. Taking time out of your busy schedule. My name is Derrick Jackson, and I will be your 84th governor. I am my mother's only son. She was born and raised right here in Waynesboro, Georgia. You may not know where that's located, but it's in Burke County. And she left in 1960, went up to New York to become a nurse. They had a big job boom. And then 6 years later, she had me. And she taught me how to be a gentleman. Because growing up with three sisters, I learned family and what it meant to be a gentleman. And that values and principles took me to the United States Navy. For 22 years, I wore the uniform. And I met another sailor here. He is 90 years old. Young. How about that? 90 years young. About to turn 91, right? And the reason why I say that because I focus on family. See, the Navy taught me leadership and experience and integrity, and honesty. And then after I retired, I came here. Worked for General Electric, did that for 10 years as a corporate executive. And then my predecessor decided to retire. And anytime somebody asks you to go to Waffle House for breakfast, be careful. And so I got elected in 2016, and I've been in elected office for 10 years now. So that's 42 years of leadership and experience and service. Why am I running for governor? Because John Lewis said it best. He said, when you see something that's not right, not fair, and not just, we have a moral obligation to do something. And that moral obligation is to make sure that 11 million Georgians have a governor that's experienced on day one to fight the Trump policies, as I did yesterday when Governor Kemp sent 75 men and women in uniform to participate in this martial law.
Thank you all so much. Again, I'm going to ask 3 questions. They're to be responded to by each of you in turn and in any order. I'm a feminist. And then after those 3 questions, I'm going to open it up to the floor to ask any of the individual candidates questions that you may have. To begin, I have 2 related questions in one. First, what do you think will be your biggest obstacle for turning out voters in the 1st district? And second, how can we convert deep red rural areas, which will be suffering a massive burden under the rural healthcare crisis that the OPA creates due to permanent Medicaid cuts threatening rural hospitals across Georgia? And I'm, again, open to anybody beginning.
I'll start. So a couple of things here. So one, I know we are focusing on Medicaid and healthcare cuts that are a part of OBA, but it is a tremendous amount of other cuts that are going to impact things like Head Start. It's going to impact, increase our pharmacy deserts, our food deserts. It's going to impact energy assistance. It's going to cut HUD funding and CBGD funding, which also funds needed nonprofits and the social safety net in our community and our state. And so when we begin to think about that, even for a city that has as robust social safety net as Savannah, and you think about getting into those rural communities where there's less or nothing one of the things that is going to be critical is getting them educated about what's happening, coalition building, and beginning conversations at the community level that help drive those folks out to the front lines of their lives, right? So that they can start making decisions and voting in a way that moves the line and the needle for them. So that looks like a lot of, I'm getting the 10-second here, but that looks like a lot of conversations. That looks like a lot of coalition building, and that's not going to happen at a one-stop, one-hop, political moment. That has to be a approach with groups like Indivisible and others to take that on.
Thank you.
So turnout. I'm going to give you three numbers what took place last year. 75 million of us voted for her. 77 million voted for a convicted felon. But it's the 89 million registered voters that did not show up. So we have to show up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care if it's urban, suburban, or rural, black or white, old or young. We have to show up because we all have to save this democracy. If you ever wondered in 1950 what would have been like to make sure that you have rights in a democracy, you now have your opportunity to participate. Number one, turnout is through showing up. Then the second question is the big ugly bill. As a father of 7 children, I know, 4 daughters and 3 sons.
Wow.
The oldest is 31, the youngest is 19. And when I think about my 7 children and my lovely wife, I realize that this big ugly bill is going to hurt and devastate a lot of families. It's not just going to devastate those who are on SNAP and WIC and food stamp. It's going to impact us all.
Right.
When you take $1 trillion out of Medicaid and Medicare, someone that's taking care of his 89-year-old aunt right now, that already, she did 50 years as a nurse, and she has early signs of dementia. And so if this bill continues to go through, it's going to devastate me and my family because they already told me the more she gets to lose her memory, and I refuse to use that other name, it's going to cost me $9,000 a month for memory care.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. The clock is.
Oh, yeah, no, that's okay, Chris.
Ms. Nelson?
Good evening again. The question was the biggest obstacles getting people to the polls. For me, I think visibility, number one, in the smaller communities is going to be where we reach people. We've got to get out and be visible. They need to see us. We need to get back to grassroots, door knocking, and making sure that they understand what politics really means to them on a local level. I was blessed yesterday to attend an event and actually had a constituent that I had not met stop me and say, thank you for knocking on my door this weekend. I wasn't there, but I did get your literature. I literally just finished qualifying on Tuesday, and Saturday morning and Sunday, I was out all day canvassing. To see the quick impact that this woman I did not know, this constituent of mine, tell me, recognize me in a restaurant and say, hey, I know you represent my district. That's what we're doing it for. her questions to me later, we won't disclose, but making sure that our citizens can reach us. The accessibility is key. We have to be visible. We have to be accessible. We've got to get back to the ground. I think people go back to your race a little bit. A $524 bill for me last month, Georgia Power. People don't know why they're voting. They need to know why they're voting. So I've been having that conversation too.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take the second question first. And I hear you talk about deep red and how do we bring them here with us? Well, first of all, we have to stop identifying them as deep red.
Right.
They're deep humans.
Right.
And they're gonna be people who are gonna be hurting, who need the same services you do, who need the same access you do. And you can be mad and you can be angry, but sometimes people just don't know what they don't know. And I can't get mad at someone voting for their best self-interest, even though they were lied to. But what I can do is provide them hope and strategy and policies that are going to get us to the other side. And that's not what we're talking about right now. We need people to talk about solutions. We need people to talk about what is going to happen over the next 2 decades when we think about our future and our family. I'm already thinking about how do we get dollars here for apprenticeship programs? How do we get dollars here for Medicaid expansion when Kemp and whoever else comes through doesn't want to expand it, right? At the federal level, I'm thinking about the gaps that I can fill that this state refuses to fill. And then how do I work with local officials and county and state and city council and all those great people to make sure that I hear them and I represent them at the Capitol to bring the resources back. And that's the conversation that's going to bring people to the table. We can be mad, y'all. I'm not saying don't be mad. But what I am saying is we got to grow through that madness and grow and get to a point where we look attractive to the other team.
So I think the biggest thing about getting people to the polls is a lot of people are very apathetic. They don't feel like their vote actually does anything anymore. That's why a lot of people stay at home. And so we have to give people something to vote for, not just something to vote against. And like, how do we get in touch with people who maybe are on the fence, don't vote, or people who are more traditionally Republican? I grew up in Alabama. My family is conservative. But we have conversations all the time about kind of what is happening in the world, and they're concerned too. And so part of it is having those difficult conversations and not trying to convince them of anything, but actually listening to people about what their concerns are, what keeps them up at night. Because when you start talking to people, what you realize is we actually have a lot more in common than we have different. But doing that work and having those conversations isn't easy, especially because we are mad, we are upset about the way things are going, and we know that people are going to be suffering. And then for our elected officials, for our candidates, that means also having those conversations, listening to people about what their actual needs are, and making ourselves available and engaging with them. We shouldn't just be people that are like over in the high tower, over in the Capitol, but people that are actually in their communities and people that they can reach and talk to and feel that they can trust and can provide them with real policy solutions.
Great, thank you so much. Second question. Many families in our area work in hospitality, agriculture, and service industries, often juggling multiple jobs or seasonal work. The OBA affects these families through changes into tax benefits, like the temporary tax credits for tips, overtime, and seniors that expire in 2028, changes to healthcare programs, and other federal policies. What do you see as the biggest concerns from this legislation for working families, and what can be done at your level of government to help?
You know, when I think about this big ugly bill, the very thing that will keep me up at night when I become your governor is the number of deaths that are occurring in rural Georgia. In 2000, 12 counties had more deaths than births. In 2015, 60 counties had more deaths than births. Today, it's 94 counties out of 159 have more deaths than births. 82 counties do not have an OBGYN. 67 counties do not have a pediatrician. 12 counties do not have a doctor, nurse, PA at all. And so if we do not get this right, the 122 counties of the 159 counties that we consider rural is going to continue to shrink, not because people are leaving, people are dying. Just think about this. 5 years ago, we could not assemble in a place like this. Doesn't mean that COVID is gone. I just lost a dear friend this week from COVID. And so we got to make sure that our CDC, our NIH, National Institute of Health, that those workers that just fired right here in Georgia, I will be the first one to hire them back. Them doctors, they deserve to have a governor that's going to help keep us all alive. No one should have preventable death on their death certificate. In 2021, 169 women died simply trying to give birth. So as a dad of 4 daughters and 3 sons, I want to make sure every county can sustain life. Because if you don't sustain life, nothing that Chris just mentioned matters. No one should die a preventable death.
Thank you.
So, Chris, you asked about how the bill will HR1. That's what we're calling it. That's what we're calling it. How HR1 will impact families, and you heard some of it. That across our state, when we think about our state, over 42% of Georgia are working families. They're asset poor, meaning they don't own a home, they don't have a 401k, life insurance, the things some of us take for granted. When you go down into cross sections of our urban communities, that gets up to 52%. And then in neighborhoods and zip codes like the East Side and West Side, we can look at intersections of our community here in Savannah with the 80+% of childhood poverty. And so when we talk about cuts that are going to happen with this bill that are slated to happen, we're talking about low income energy assistance. We're talking about Head Start. We're talking about jobs. We're talking about shrinking home assistance and all of the things that our families depend on just to make not their ends meet, but to get them to live month to month. And so one of the things that I want to be focused on in the Public Service Commission is to ensure that energy burden is not added to that, and to ensure that programs are expanded and that there are new and innovative ways that we can introduce community benefit agreements, that we require our utilities to reinvest into the communities that they're extracting from, and that we are demanding that reinvestment. No one here, including me, gets an 11 to 12% return on any investment I make. And so we want to make sure that that money goes back into our state and supports our families and our communities.
Sure, no, yeah, absolutely. I was talking about big working families. People often juggling multiple jobs, and so the OVA is affecting tax benefits, obviously changes to healthcare programs, a variety of federal policies. Curious about what are the biggest concerns from this legislation for working families, and what can you do at your level of government to help?
Go ahead.
Oh.
All right. Trying to take some notes real quick just so I can bring it in on a local level. Again, I apologize. I am one of those parents, single mom, 3 kids, the whole 9 yards. I'm doing everything I can to pay bills. Again, making sure that I highlight how important your race is, Dr. Johnson, because it really is. When I got that $524 bill and then this month $563 bill, I was flabbergasted. But those are real things that real people deal with. So it is up to us to educate one another. How it impacts us is ultimately if we're out trying to work 1 and 2 jobs to take care of all of our bills, make sure that our children are fed and that they have all of the extracurriculars and the funding from parents, that means that parents are often less likely to be at home with the children. So that means that their children are going without possibly home cooked meals. Mine a little bit different. I don't have a choice. They don't really like the fast food as much, so I don't get that break. But one of the things that is very important to me is financial literacy, and I think we need to do a better job on the local level of educating these children who are going to in turn go home and educate their families, their parents, to say, hey, I want to be able to, own a home one day. I want to be just like my grandmother. They can't often say that about their parents, and we've got to do a better job about that. I think HR 1 is definitely going to destroy that.
Thank you so much.
I'll go. Since I am thinking about, I'm kidding, I'm running for federal government. And I think about working families. If we don't address what we call a working family, meaning what is that income, what is that annual salary, we're not going to actually ever hit the point, right? We have poverty down to something that's astronomical in those levels, but really poverty can hit at $60,000 for a family of 4. And so, on the federal level, we need to be more aggressive about how we talk about what is minimum wage and creating a better way to thank you. Thank you for fighting for minimum wage. And creating better calculations around what does it cost to live in this country today. Not what it cost 10 years ago, not even what it cost 5 years ago, and not even what it cost a year ago when that man got elected to president. I think we also need to think really creatively about taxes. And so on the federal level, we can do more things. I know everyone talks about affordable housing, but we're renters first, most of us. And so we need to think about what are renters' tax credits? And how do we give people that credit back for all the rent that they're paying? Because right now, it's just all you hear is, oh, you're just paying rent, you need to go buy a home. Well, if the interest rates on homes doesn't fit, or you can't qualify with your credit, what am I doing? I'm still paying rent. So people should be able to write off rent for a tax credit. We also need to think about the EITC and CTC. They're great programs, the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, but they, again, are limited by the salaries that they discuss. They need to be expanded and increase what that annual salary is so more people can participate. And then also they need to have a program where we think about what does it look like on a 5 to 10 to 15 year. What are our goals, right, with this? Because right now, what it does, it just keeps encouraging poverty instead of getting someone out of poverty. And we need to be honest with ourselves about these programs. They say waste, and that was the way they got rid of a lot of our stuff and able to cut and doge. But really, were they effective? Did we ever ask ourselves that question? And it's okay for us to take an audit and look at how we operate, but then also build better and learn from that lesson. And I think, though everything feels horrible right now, we have some amazing opportunities to create legislation and policy that will transform this country and help save the middle class.
This one?
So I just want to start by saying that no one should have to work multiple jobs just to pay bills. Like, that is unacceptable. That we live in a country where we're the wealthiest country in the world, and people have to work multiple jobs just to keep a roof over their head and buy groceries and take care of their kids. And so at the state level, things that we can do, because one thing we know is that with the OBB, or whatever the acronym we're using tonight, it will significantly cut access to food, access to healthcare, things that people rely on. And there are already people in our communities who are having to make decisions about whether to pay their rent or whether to buy their groceries. And so we have to basically make up for what the federal government is doing and be willing to invest state money and invest local money into those services to make sure that people have access to food, make sure that they can afford health care. One of the conversations for years at the state level has been about expanding Medicaid. With these Medicaid cuts, that might not even be an option. So how do we as Georgia, how do we fund health care and give people access even without the federal government?
We use the money in the benefits coffer that the governor has been stashing
Since
COVID. That's how we do it.
Yeah, we have a huge surplus, and even despite the budget cuts that are being done, because I believe we get 30% of our state budget from the federal government. We're not digging into that, and we're just leaving people to suffer for it.
Thank you so much.
And that number is $16 billion surplus.
Right.
16 billion would be.
What else did he not pay?
Gotta have
Okay.
the right governor.
The last question from me, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. So I hope your gray matter has been working. Coastal Georgia communities, particularly communities of color, often bear disproportionate environmental burdens from industrial operations. The OBA is rolling back environmental programs while expanding industrial tax incentives, even while healthcare is being cut to pay for that. How would you ensure that economic development doesn't further harm communities that are already overburdened by pollution?
Can I start there?
Yes, please.
So, so first of all, you're correct. Black and brown people are the ones breathing the filthiest air and often living closest to the worst offenders of those who take advantage of environmental waste and our tax credits in our country. I think that one of the things that we should be considering is that as we think about waste and environmental protection is again demanding that the utilities and those who are contributing to that waste take care of it. Instead of those billions of dollars going back into the pockets of shareholders, they should be in structured community benefit agreements. And we have not asked for that. We have not asked our Savannah Economic Development Authority or the Georgia Development Authority has not asked that when you move to Georgia that you have rooftop solar and you contribute those credits back to the community. We've just not asked for some of the economic innovation that we've seen across the country and the opportunities. So when I get to that seat, I plan to make a demand on innovation and a demand on community reinvestment. And that's where the opportunity is. It's already here in Georgia. It's not new money, right? And there's no reason Hyundai couldn't have all rooftop solar. Why does it only have 5%? It was because our community did not ask them for it, right? It's the only reason. And so we need to be bold enough to make an ask, and we need to be bold enough to show up at the meetings and make a demand on our city councils, on our county commissioners, on our economic development authorities. All of us should be at the table making that demand. If you want to do business in Georgia, then you're going to be required to reinvest back into the families that live, work, and play in Georgia.
I mean, to add to that, it's a thing called impact fees. And we need to teach local government to start imposing those. So when Camp overrides you, you know how much it costs to build that in your community, right? And I think about Dr. McLean, who's a longtime Black voice of environmental justice here in Savannah. And she was teaching people how to weatherize their homes. She was also making sure folks got clear filters. Those type of programmings come from federal dollars where we can also educate. And so I say that to say, we also need to be intentional about centering Black and brown voices. The environmental fight is not just one color, it's everybody's color. And so we need to bring everyone into that discussion because it looks different for everybody. I mean, last year, though I'm blessed where I am, 9 days without power I didn't have after the hurricane. My father is blind. On the 8th day, I got worried, but he's also a veteran. And he goes, I got it. And I said, that's great, but we shouldn't have to. And so we have to think about everyone in this moment when we talk about environmental justice. And we also have to think about it in a very transformative way.
So it's not just environmental. It's everything. I mean, if you think about what's happening right now, from FEMA to USAID, I mean, all these agencies, right? They had a job to protect us. And so because of what they're doing at the federal and state level, they have awakened the sleeping giant. We work for you all. You are the boss. You're the employer. And you got to hold us accountable. You got to continue to show up. And so it's great for us to protest, but we got to demand those who are saying no more FEMA. I mean, as an officer in the Navy, hurricane season is right now. And so when Taco Orange Dude told Kim, I'm not giving you $5.1 billion. So we still have, Black farmers, rural Georgia devastated from Hurricane Helene. They still haven't recovered. And so we just got to continue to show up. I know we're going to get tired, but we have to continue to show up. If we don't, they're going to continue to steamroll us. It's not just environmental, but in everything.
Area.
They're coming after everything. So there's no checks and balance. We can't count on the Supreme Court to show up for us. We can't count on Congress to show up. We have to show up, ladies and gentlemen.
So we have to hold these companies in our community accountable. I know recently with international paper closure, it came out that there is currently a lawsuit against it and I believe 50 companies for basically dumping chemicals into our water supply. And yet, despite knowing that, we continue to give them tax breaks and money, and then they just abandon our community altogether. In West Savannah, I know Harambe House has been doing work about air quality because they are seeing significant health effects from the poor air quality because of all the different trucks and all the different warehouses that are coming through there. And yet, very little is our state or local governments doing anything about that. So we have to make sure, one, we're regulating all of these businesses because the majority of economic effects come not from us as individuals, but from corporations. And then actually holding them accountable and not just, waving our finger at them, telling them they need to do better. And making sure they're paying into our communities. And then also at the state level, making sure that we're investing in, renewable energy and not just using up coal and gas, even though that's what the Public Service Commission and Georgia Power is wanting to move back to, which is why that position is so important to make sure that we are investing in renewable energy.
Okay, bringing it home to a municipal level. What I'm here for. Yes, industry versus citizens is so real. People of color and poverty-stricken are always the first to be impacted on every level. The ask that Dr. Johnson referred to is so legitimate. It is so legitimate. The impact fees that I was writing down as you were saying, I was like, yes, 4 years of begging, I retract that, not begging, but advocating for impact fees in my city became a little bit difficult. We weren't able to secure the impact fees, so we diverted, pivoted, and used development agreements. There is nobody in the city of Port Wentworth, believe the hype if you want to, but it is not true. The city of Port Wentworth makes sure that every development, and I do mean every, signs a development agreement with our city. You are not getting away with murder. We are not being molested at the city. They are getting back. They are reinvesting in our communities directly. You are more than welcome to request copies of our development agreements because they do exist. We are holding them accountable in the city of Port Wentworth, and I hope that other cities and municipalities begin to do the very same.
Thank you so much. That was everyone, right? It's time to turn it over to you all. We have mic runners on each side of each of these. I also raise your hand if you have a question, and we already have one up there. This gentleman in the fourth row or so, and I'm going to try my best to alternate.
Where are we? Everyone's moving.
We don't all have to answer it. It's just,
This would be a question for Ms. Hollowell or Mr. Jackson, I think, because what my question is about is the protection of our natural resources on the coast. I think a lot of people live on the coast because of natural beauty. Fishermen, shrimpers, the natural resources on the coast are extremely important. So I just would like you to speak to those and protecting them.
Absolutely. So 6 years ago now, there was a bill. My friends on the other side of the aisle wanted to open up drilling up our coast. I sit on regulated industries. Now, if you probably haven't noticed tonight, probably have a big mouth. And I said, why in the world are you going to try to do drilling on the coast and there's nothing there? In fact, they tried to drill off the coast, for those who don't know, in the early 70s, 1971, 1972, and there was nothing there. And so I asked the sponsor of this bill, how can you prove to us that something is there? And he said in the committee meeting, well, we can't prove it, so we need a drill to try. I said, no, you're talking to a Navy guy. We got ships, ultrasound, sonar. We have capability to know if something's there. And I killed that bill because he could not answer the question. That's what we need. You need experience. You got to shut it down because they're trying. ExxonMobil, right? Pay attention. ExxonMobil and others, they want to drill and tap in those areas. And they're not even thinking about our coast. We only have 104 miles of coastline. Why disturb that? I don't care if it was 1,000 miles. If nothing is there, there's no drilling if Derrick Jackson's your governor.
I appreciate this question, and I think, we have to look at it from a bunch of different ways. And one of the ways that we really need to concentrate is that the HR1 looks different in every city. And so in Savannah, it's going to look very different from 5 years from now. And it's going to look where our coastlines have not been taken care of. But what we can do is advocate for jobs around taking care of coastlines. And we can speak to the other side in an economic voice. And in that economic voice is, would be really great if we could figure out federal funding or grant opportunities for folks to protect the coast to increase jobs, to increase training, and to get more people involved in that pipeline. Because right now, we've heard it all before, the planet is dying, so on and so forth. Build a data center. They don't care. Release our natural lands, so for corporations to buy them. But they do talk money. And there is a lot of money to be made and to spread through environmental acts. And so what I would look for is more so studies on what we can do to talk about it in an economic form and what kind of legislation and policy I can support and present at the Hill.
Thank you. Question up here.
This question is, I guess, for our local leadership. With regards to impact fees and tax abatements for larger companies, I'm not sure if you guys know, but in Pooler, they just raised taxes 13%, property taxes 13% to offset the budget that the city does not have. It was also found out during a city council meeting that I was in that Tanger Outlets has a 20-year tax abatement. And this is initiated by CETA, the same organization that also gave the International Paper Company their tax abatement strategy. So what exactly or what strategies would you put in place to take care of issues like that and not have homeowners footing the bill when much larger companies should be doing it?
I think, thank you for your question. I think a part of that, we have to give some responsibility to the previous administrations, because I do know the city of Pooler had almost not a complete flip, but they had change of hands and they were without appropriate leadership that had very little consideration or understanding of finances. So I don't think it's fair to hold the current council who is coming in and trying to fix a lot of those financial issues 100% accountable. I do know a lot of them professionally and personally, and I know they've been working very hard over the last several years to attempt to get leadership to work alongside them. In the city of Port Wentworth, because I can't speak to everything that the city of Pooler or Bloomingdale or anybody else is doing, but in the city of Port Wentworth, we have smaller task force that we want people to join. And we just need people to get on board. As you mentioned, apathy is huge in all of our communities. If you get involved like you did and are doing, and get a seat at the table and get a real understanding of how it all works together, we may be able to have a better footing. I am grateful for the years that I have with Chatham County. It has given me everything I know up here and everything, my home, my children. It is the way I live, but it taught me everything I know. I would not be as well versed as I am on so many different topics if I did not have the Chatham County background. And I'm grateful for them, but I would suggest to everyone, just get involved. Start going to your council meetings, start showing up, as Mr. Jackson mentioned. Just stop, don't stop showing up. We need you to be a part. We need you to participate in these small committees. We have a council member that is doing this monthly and she gets very poor attendance, and it's awful to see. It's very disappointing for her because she's really trying. We just want you guys to participate. Just come. We listen. I have 3 phones.
And listen, don't just show up at a forum.
Mhm.
You can't just show up at a forum. You need to show up at CETA.
Although, thank you for coming.
Although thank you for coming. But you need to show up at CETA. You also need to show up at the county commission meeting.
Right.
And you also need to show up at the city council meeting. And you need to show up at the Board of Education meeting. And all of these places where the intersection of your life meet with city and local and municipal governance. The idea that one person is going to fix it all is not realistic, right? I'm going to be one voice on the PSC, but I can tell you I'm going to be loud and I'm going to bring you with me, right? And I'm going to rattle enough cages and make enough demands that I'm going to go to Mr. Womack's office to have a conversation. That's the president of Georgia Power, by the way, CEO of Georgia Power. So you've got to get into those places and not just say, well, CETA did this or the city did this. No, you got to show up to those places and make a demand. Because a lot of times I can tell you, I've been at those tables, I've been in those meetings. Sometimes nobody thinks of the question to ask. They're trying to check the box and get it done. And they haven't thought about everyone. And so I can tell you, and I see one of our county commissioners, he can tell you how many times I talk to them about transportation or jobs or all the things that they may have not been thinking about at the time they were making that decision. So don't just show up here at a forum, right? We all agree with you. You've got to show up where the decision meets life on the front lines.
Thank you. Discussion from this gentleman in the blue shirt.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. This is for all of the participants on the panel. Senator Jackson, you're the only person that I've seen who's run for governor so far that's mentioned COVID at all, even though we know that it's still here, it's still disabling so many people. You see me wearing a mask right now because there is a wave. I say that to say, what if y'all are elected to y'all positions, and I'm assuming y'all are in positions now, what would y'all do to help advocate to basically keep whatever we have left of public health within our state and federal state body? Because again, we know there have been cities all over the country that's introduced mask bans to prevent people like myself from wearing these. We have certain people in office who are getting rid of vaccines, so that if you didn't want to wear one of these, you after someone may not be able to take the vaccine to protect yourself from catching any various illness you want to not get anyway. And among so many issues, again, air quality, not just in our neighborhoods, but inside buildings just like these, making sure that's up to par. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to ask again. if y'all are elected to y'all respective positions, what would y'all do to help advocate, to help protect public health? Thank you.
Well, public health is essential. That's what we learned. We learned during the pandemic that public health touches every area of our life, every area of our economy. And so this idea of not using common sense or science and creating policy based on conspiracy is ludicrous and it's outlandish. And you shouldn't wait for any of us to get elected to any office. You should be now calling your senators. You should be now contacting your governor, and you should be now showing up because your governor's planning on running for president. And so the idea that this idea that public health doesn't matter today, right now, at this minute, it, again, to your point, is ludicrous. So you should be showing up right now, making that demand, talking to your senators, Warnock, Ossoff. You should be talking to your state representatives, your senator, and you should be demanding that public health is funded and that it is a major consideration on everyone's policy desk and agenda.
Thank you. And if I may just add to Dr. Johnson's just 2 points. So tonight I primarily focus on health because I'm seeing the data, the number of Georgians leaving us. Right? No one should have preventable death on their death certificate. Right? Now, of course, I have a comprehensive plan. You go to voteDerrickJackson.org, voteDerrickJackson.org, but I have a comprehensive plan. And I just added on there because when the HHS, that guy, removed $1 billion from mRNA technology research, they also fired, as I mentioned earlier, 600 doctors and epidemiologists from CDC and NIH. Why is that a problem? Because I'm starting to see, because no other gubernatorial candidate is talking about this, I'm starting to see an uptick in measles. We defeated measles. We defeated mumps, right? Smallpox, right? That stuff was in the past, but it's coming back, right? So just like COVID, right? And as I stated, a very dear friend just passed away. We're going to be burying him this upcoming Saturday. And so if I'm not focusing on your health, then you should fire me because you can't do anything else without your health. You can't. You can't talk about hospitality, agriculture, farming. You can't talk about nothing else if you do not have your health. And I'm trying to change this trajectory on the preventable deaths. These are solvable. I believe in science. I will empower doctors and nurses to do their job and give them the resources, and then I will get out of the way. That's what the 11 million Georgians are asking us to do, right? Governor Kemp said 4 years ago, his pathway program is going to have 150,000 people in it. You know what it is today, ladies and gentlemen? 8,000.
It's less than 12.
Right? We have 1.3. I love data, right? Obviously, I got economic background. But I'm going to finish with this point, Chris. 1.3 million Georgians right now with no health care. I'm not even talking about the homeless yet. I'm not even talking about the 2.4 million that's living below the poverty level. I'm just talking about with no health care. And that's adding pressure every time they walk through the doors. Oh, my bad. The hospitals are closing too. We got to focus on healthcare. Thank you for the question.
But I also want to point out that when things become unfunded at the federal level, they're uncovered at the insurance level. So you and I won't have coverage. Our insurance companies, if you're privately insured, if COVID's no longer a requirement, a vaccine's no longer a requirement, it's not going to be covered. And so it's going to be out of pocket. And so all of those implications should require you and I, again, to be making the phone calls, talking to our insurers. And by the way, I would check my candidates and I would see who's funding their campaigns. and talk to those folks.
Yeah.
Now
I
we're
just want
talking. Now we're talking.
So we didn't
I don't
really
wanna
like
get through
discuss
that.
on the federal level, just really
Yeah.
quick. You know, there's this opportunity we have that are called rural health transformation funds. We can actually advocate that and put it in our budget and get those dollars to us. What we would need is advocates. So I would need a Representative Jackson, our future PSC commissioner, right? When I'm in office, we'll need all the state to ask for these transformational funds to come to the government. I will also be advocating to fully reinstate and fund the NIH. Bring those people back. And so we don't address the issues where the gaps are, but also we have to start looking for the opportunities of where those dollars are, then we're not really having a transformative or a forward-thinking conversation about health, because health costs money.
Thank you.
Can I-
Take this down? Or did you want to address the?
Just real quick. I just want to add, so the Georgia Public Health Department actually has a very good department that tracks information, but is always great about getting that information out. So finding ways to make sure that information is accessible to the public. But the other thing is building workers' rights by making sure that we have mandatory paid leave so that people are coming to work sick and aren't spreading things further. Because if you have to choose between, not paying your rent that month and getting everyone sick, you're probably going to get everyone sick. So we want to make sure we have good worker protections to make sure that when you are sick, you're able to stay home, rest up, and not infect everyone else.
Yeah. I see. She's been trying to ask a question.
This is in reference to a comment on turnout by Representative Jackson, not a negative comment on you, but a question to everyone. Respectfully, sir, turnout and our platforms can't simply be based on opposing Trump and his Republican platform. What affirmative new policies will each of you implement and fight for to help turn out voters and move the country and stay forward?
Listen, I agree, but when you only have 60 seconds to talk,
Bigger conversation.
so in my 42 years of leadership and experience and service, you have to have an offense and a defense. You have to. My 10 years under the Gold Dome, we often, as Democrats, say, we're going to reach across the aisle, we're going to build bridges and all that. Here's the ugly truth. 378 bills ended up on Governor Kemp's desk. Of that 378, you want to take how many bills were Democratic bills? 4. So they're not interested. So we do have to fight, right? If I can't push the agenda because you all hired me. Again, you're the employer and you're expecting for me to get things done in spite of. So yes, I'm gonna fight for something, fight for your family, but I gotta fight against losing our democracy right now. I gotta fight against dealing with those who coming after our humanity. I gotta fight against those. This ugly bill, this 944 pages is ugly. So I can't talk about the things I wanna do unless I deal with that. That's the way the Navy taught me. I gotta look at how to neutralize this ugly stuff so I can do the good stuff.
Thank you.
I want to jump in just a little bit here, just to underscore this. You're right. So first of all, Project 2025, they told us what they were going to do. Right? So it wasn't a secret.
Yeah.
It wasn't a secret. They're almost 50% in implementation, into implementation. I'm running because I got mad that we didn't have a response. We didn't have a defense mechanism. We didn't have a offensive playbook. We didn't have our own project 2025. We didn't have our own solutioning for where we are. And this bill not only transforms today, it transforms the way our country operates.
Correct.
And so we've got to do long game strategy. We've got to play a long game. This idea that we need to be voting down ballots. We need to be choosing candidates that can win. We don't need to be having 25 people on the field and then waiting to hear what they think. We need to be organizing ourselves and putting forth winnable candidates, right? We need to start out with the winner, right? We need to do our organizing in the kitchen. And when we come out to serve, it needs to be on a platter because nobody eats steak on a garbage pail.
Ms. Clark, thank you.
So,
So one thing that really interesting that happened during the last election is there was a pool of voters in New York who voted both for Trump and both for AOC, which anyone who knows those two obviously knows their platforms and what they stand for is very, very different. The thing that they both had in common is that they both spoke to the material conditions and the things that actually affected people's lives. So I want to work towards making your housing cheaper. I want to make towards groceries cheaper. Now, obviously, Trump has not delivered on those things and has actually made everything more expensive, but we have to actually advocate for policies that affect everyday people's lives. We need to make sure that investment companies aren't buying up all our housing and driving up the cost of both mortgages and rent. We have to make sure that workers are getting paid a living wage. We have to make sure that we have, if not free childcare, we need to make sure we have affordable and accessible childcare options. Because those are the things that people care about, is what is their everyday life going to look like? And that's what they voted for. And so we have to make sure that we are advocating for and pushing those types of policies.
So at the federal level, I will support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the Freedom to Vote Act. I will submit my own Voting Rights Act.
right.
We have to keep pushing at the federal level and submit every bill possible until it passes. There are going to be a few things that are going to be in our way this year and next year. Redistricting. How we talk about redistricting and how we move around it, right? Thank you, California, for moving forward. But every Democratic trifecta in this country needs to redistrict and make sure we have those seats in that house.
Yes.
Long
game. Long game.
The long game. We also need to, and if you identify as a Democrat in this room, we need to push the DNC to support every single candidate who is challenging a seat this year.
Long game.
They can't keep asking us for money and only give it to one candidate.
Right.
Because we know who needs to represent us from our community. And thank you, senators. Yes, Ossoff and Warnock. But I also need to think about who's going to get Buddy Carter out of here. I am. I'm done. Yeah, we're done. And that was fun.
So I just want to make sure.
Okay, we all know voting takes people. People deserve conversation. Conversation is going to equate to policy, right? We need policy. That's what the discussion is. So it doesn't have to be red or blue, just conversation. Once we begin to have those conversations in our small communities, our committees, we can create policy together. So again, as I mentioned earlier, just please begin to participate in your local communities. We can create these policies together where they work for all of the people, not just some of the people.
We have this lady, yes, in the purple has been trying to ask her question the entire
Hold on a
time.
second. Mr. Jackson,
I was just going to add one more thing. Yes. Georgia is building the largest detention center in the United States. Okay? Right? The largest. So when we are having citizens being abducted and kidnapped, so that's what I'm saying. We are at war right now. Not the ones I'm accustomed to with missiles and bombs, but we cannot have our queens, our women, and our children being abducted. That's not the democracy. When I was in Camden a few weeks ago, a single mother said, "I'm afraid to leave my home because I may lose my children." She has 3 children. And so if she goes to the store and she doesn't return, her 14-year-old is going to ask, "Where's my mother?" So we got to fight right now. This is unconventional. The Supreme Court that made him, a king, right? Because we often said nobody's above the law. This dude is running Project 25. right? Yes.
All right.
So,
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. All right.
He's a liar.
yeah.
He's a jerk.
And I hate
All right. All right. Hold on.
I have a good voice. Can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
Hold on, please.
Okay. So with the effects of climate change and population growth, increasing, what infrastructure needs do you see in our region and how would you address them at your level?
Did you have any particular candidate you wanted to address?
I said at their level.
Okay.
Infrastructure affects everybody.
Yeah. So utility profits and significant infrastructure investment should yield more favorable returns, right? For us, and they should generate value for the communities that they impact. So one of the things that I've been talking about across Georgia is advocating again for that reinvestment, for those impact fees, for reinvestment back into local economies, including clean energy jobs, job training, workforce development, health resilience initiative in disproportionately burdened areas. There's a great project happening at Boston Medical Center and Boston University where they're using their energy credits. They're writing prescriptions.
Right.
And alleviating about 30% of overburden for their underserved communities, right? They have a rooftop garden. They have a pantry where they're feeding the community right in the hospital. There's no reason those things can't be done in Georgia. We've just not had the idea and the initiative or a public service commissioner who will demand that. And I plan to do exactly that. Our current Public Service Commission has voted 6 times to raise your rates. They see themselves as an extension of the utility and not as an advocate for you. They've asked no questions. They've just voted whatever Georgia Power said. And they have in my race alone, the person I'm running against has gotten $600,000 to run against little old me.
By who?
By the utility companies. So, yeah. So again, we've got to look at smarter investments, smarter requirements. I can show you a document that I wrote for the city that asked CETA to start making purchasing requirements, to debundle contracts, to do all of the things that we could be doing on the local level that will improve infrastructure and directly impact communities around our state. So there's plenty that can be done.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hollowell?
On the federal level, we need to stop diverting dollars to billionaires and tax cuts to billionaires and these corporations who all they do is go around and pollute.
Mm-hmm.
Those billionaires, tax cuts, and those credits can actually go to clean energy projects. And so on the federal level, that's what I'll be advocating for. And so we need to actually revolutionize our tax policy and how we look at taxes and how we look at corporations who all they do is actually damage, destroy, and leave nothing left except for low-paying jobs and no future. And so we need to have a real aggressive conversation on the Hill about how do we address this horrible thing that we've put forward for so long because of personal investments by corporations into your campaign corporate tax. And really think about what am I leaving behind for the kids of this future rather than what tax credit or what tax cut I'm going to give this billionaire. Because that trickle down tax cut does not come. That's not real. And it doesn't actually improve our standard way of living.
Thank you so much.
I'll keep it short in light of time, but infrastructure is all of our issue. I think that it is important that we try to focus our efforts on impact fees and development agreements, as we've all mentioned. I'm grateful to be in a city that is doing that, but I think there needs to be a larger conversation, even from a county perspective, and again, statewide. These are things that should be required. If you're coming into our communities, we need you to be good neighbors. You're a part of our community. We need this. This is a requirement. This is, as you mentioned, Dr. Johnson, a demand.
Yeah.
This is not something that is optional. Give back to our cities, reinvest in us. But also making sure that our project list, when we are having these conversations about T-SPLOS and all of the different SPLOS, that they make sense for everyone, not just a few of us.
And that there's investments for seniors and children in those plots.
I mean, you guys, we are going to have to prioritize capital projects for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we can't think about it's a regressive tax where we say we'll just increase the sales tax or we'll increase the millage rate or we'll do a T-SPLOS. All that stuff impacts people on top of what the federal government is doing to people's income. And so we need to be very, very strategic and think about what we need to address and what we need to prioritize. I don't think we need to prioritize the building of the jail in Liberty County, but I do think they need to prioritize building a justice center and how to stop recidivism and make sure people are actually being served properly.
Thank you. Ms. Clark?
Yeah, so very much in line with what they're saying is that, one, we have to make sure we're holding corporations accountable. And we're actually putting money into infrastructure. Even in the infrastructure we have, we're so behind so many other countries in what we have. So particularly here in Savannah, we need to look at how do we prevent flooding? You know, the little bit of rain that we get, like the roads are gone, but the state can help fund that. The state can help give funds to help figure out what's the best way to do this. There are cities across the world who have similar problems to us and have come up with creative solutions. I know, I'm trying to remember exactly what Amsterdam did, but they kind of like made it where they weren't getting flooded as easily. And there are plenty of places we can look at like that to get ideas and put money into that from the state level.
Great.
The feds just cut a $30 million grant to Savannah for that. So we've got to, federal government.
They can do it, y'all.
Yeah.
Hold on. One at a time. We have a lot more questions. This gentleman back here.
Well, I wanted to respond to the question.
Oh, did you not get a chance?
I did. No worries.
Oh, you
No
did?
worries.
Okay.
60 seconds. I appreciate the infrastructure question. It's a three-pronged approach. First, enforce the clean air bill that we already had. It's 30 years old. We do not enforce our own laws.
Right.
It has auditing mechanism in there. So that's number one. Enforce the bills that are already on the books. Number two, incentivize good behavior and penalize bad behavior. Right? And then number three, the federal government just killed the Job Corps program. I would invest $27 million in a building that will house 600 people that they just abandoned this year and say those skills that we need, right, to help with this infrastructure, we're going to rely on ourselves and not look for the federal government. We're sitting on $16 billion surplus. Those would be the three things I would do to help the infrastructure.
All right, thank you. We're going up to this gentleman up here.
It's more of a challenge than a question. The Secretary of State has just purged an enormous amount of vouchers right here in Chatham County. I just found out through the grapevine. So, despite our efforts, if we don't, Nate's one of the youngest people here, and that's the problem. We don't have any young people here. I just ran the numbers. If everybody in this room talked to 5 people a week until the election, we've increased the rolls by 10,000 folks. And if we don't do something to stop the bleeding and increase the rolls, we don't have a chance of winning. And we need to get out and engage young people like this and meet more often, because I'd like to meet everybody in this room, because I believe everybody in this room is committed. And is there any way that we can have more of these forums, Ms. Potts, like every other week?
We you need to take these forums to the state capitol, to Brad Raffensperger's office. Everybody needs to go there, take 10 people with them, make sure they re-register, that they reclaim their voice back in the community. And we need, the only way to overcome overwhelming voter suppression is overwhelming voter turnout.
Absolutely.
You know, here's the thing, the ugly truth about that gold dome. They're counting on you not to show up. They're counting on you not to show up. I served with Brad Raffensperger. He was in the House. And I asked him one time when they first did this purge, I said, you keep talking about dead people voting. They don't.
Yeah.
Dead people don't vote. So they just purged, to your point, sir, over 470,000.
Mm-hmm.
You've now been placed on the inactive, right? And so you got to go to mvp.sos.ga.gov to verify. But they're counting on you all not to show up. We work for you. We work for you. And when you hire me to become your governor, you don't have to come to the Gold Dome. I'm coming back right here. This is a nice place. And we can have a town hall with your governor.
Okay. There's a. Okay, well, there's a microphone coming.
My question was about that. Do y'all have a strategy to attract the 18 through 30-year-old vote and turn Instagram likes into actual votes?
Yeah. I love to answer that. My son is 23 years old and he is a voter. And I did a focus group with him because all of us friends were over. And I said, what do you guys want to hear from a politician? Like, why do you guys, they all vote. Why do you want to show up to vote now? And they said, one, no one talked to us about our economic future. Y'all talk down to us and think we're just on social media being consumers. They are concerned about investing and what their retirement looks like. This is why you have so many young people doing the retail investing online. They are trying to build for their future. And so we need to be very, very intentional about how we talk to young people about economics and not be afraid of having that conversation or think they don't understand because they do. I think, too, we also need to have attractive candidates out there. You know, they don't want to hear the hate. And they're tired of that in this moment because no one has talked to them to improve their lives. So what they're thinking about is I've just graduated from high school and now I'm stuck in Savannah. What are my 4 options of a job? I have to take a minimum wage job. I'm going to try to beg, plead, steal to get to the ports. I'm going to try to figure out how to work for the city, or I'm going to try to figure out how to do another industrial job that now we see that are closing. And so we have to also think about what are the economic impacts and growth that we are trying to offer our kids before we say anything about why don't you show up. If I was 23 years old right now and I looked at what the economy is and I looked at the current state of government and I looked at who's represented me, I wouldn't show up to vote either. And so we have to give them a reason to come out. And we also have to be very intentional and say that there is a plan and there's policy to address your challenge. And we are going to make sure that we're prioritizing you in the future.
Thank you.
Perfectly said. But also just again, going back to visibility, I have the 14-year-old, obviously TikTok is all the rage right now. It's everywhere. Instagram is everywhere. We have to get out in front of these kids. We have to show them, at least from us, we have to show them that this is possible. It is very possible to be an elected official and look like me. It is very possible to, take 3 kids to meetings. They didn't come tonight, but they'll be at my meeting tomorrow. That it is real. They can actually be a part of the change. That is how we impact these kids and these young adults and make them feel included. We need to be inclusive. Show them we're here. I vote. You can vote. This is how it impacts you. I think the way we do that, quickest way we do that is TikTok and Instagram, social media.
I also think that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I gave it to Ms. Clark.
Okay.
Once again, I feel like I've been preaching this whole time, is we have to have policies that we're advocating for. We're talking to people, one, in plain language and not using big fancy words, but telling them about the things we're going to do that makes their life better, how we're going to address housing, how we're going to address healthcare. Whether you agree or disagree with them, if you look at Zoran Mandami's campaign in New York, he has had record numbers of young people not only vote, but come out and volunteer and canvass and donate. And you have to give people something to vote for. You have to give them something to be excited about. You have to give people hope that this world can be better than what it currently is.
Absolutely.
For me, that's my household, right? I mean, I got 19 or 31. And my own children said, you got to go where they are.
Yep.
Don't wait for them to come to you. So that's what we've been doing these last 7 weeks. I've been going where they are. In fact, we just had 51 or 52 young people. And I went to this recreation center and got to treat them to pizza and wings and all that stuff. But I said, they said, well, what's your plan for me? I said, no. I came here to listen. They're like, wow, tell me what you want.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be scheduled for 1 hour, Chris. It ended up being 2.5 hours. And all I did, I just with this writing, taking notes, because they're exhausted of we talking at them. I was having a conversation with them. So I do not wait to go and wait for them to come to a forum. I went where they are. I'm meeting those 18 to 35-year-old block, which is the largest block. It's just that they don't turn out. I'm going where they are and I'm just listening.
And real quick, we also have to acknowledge the challenges that young people have to vote. They can't leave their jobs to go vote, right? What is a constitutional amendment if no one is sitting there and educating them about that? And so we can't shame them. If I didn't understand what a constitutional amendment was, I wouldn't show up to vote either, right? And so we're not talking to them and meeting them where they are, even when we talk about legislation and how we ask them to turn out. We should be providing them those services and say like, oh, if you need transportation, here's this way. Did you know your job's supposed to give you an hour off to go vote? Do you know what early voting is? Do you know how to vote by mail? Even all the way to my son, I give him the best example. Do you know what a stamp is?
All right.
You know what public service commissioner is.
Dr. Johnson,
Yeah.
Dr. Johnson, and then we're going to have one more question.
Yeah.
Jesse, and then-
I wanted to just expound on what everyone said. Amen to all of it, but you have to bring the public square to the public. And if you aren't making policy digestible, right? And teaching them about where those access points meet them in their day-to-day life, then they aren't going to show up. Right. And so not just talking down, giving folks something to vote for, something to and advocacy starts with listening. Right. But if I'm not listening, and also if I'm not educated about that intersection of policy and people, because good policy is not red or blue.
Right.
Good policy is people-centered policy. And so we've got to start driving that intersection and having those conversations and then making those connections.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to have one last question, and then we're going to give the candidates 2 minutes each to provide their final.
So I just wanted to say, I don't need a microphone. As a young person, and this is more so for those that are going to be running for federal government or for the government.
That's why you should have
Take the microphone.
Jesse, they want to have the microphone.
Oh, Jesse.
This is what democracy looks like.
Okay, so I still consider myself a young person, and if you want to reach young people, I would say that one of the most impactful things that you can do to really reach us is to take a stand against AIPAC and any money that they're going to give. And taking a stand against the genocide that's going on in Gaza right now. I think making those things forefront of your campaign will really touch young people, because even though some of us might think our economics might be bleak, we still have that moral compass in us to really want to make something positive happen there. And then I think that's just.
Well, this young man has had his hand up
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, democracy.
So my question is for all the candidates on the panel. Right now, the main issue that we all are struggling with is gun violence from our schools, in our public, and every place else. Recently, we just experienced a gun violence situation in Overclock Mall. And a lot of young people does not feel safe in our public. And for centuries, the government have failed to pass policies. They have failed to hear us. that fail to realize that we need to regulate firearms. And my main question is how are you all going to regulate firearms in this country to not only infringe upon the rights of individuals, but to make sure that I'm sorry, I said that wrong, my bad.
Yes.
To make sure that you do not infringe upon the rights of individuals, but make sure that our public is safe, is secure, and that everyone feels safe within the state of Georgia and the United States.
So you're right. And let me just say this. You do not have to cross the ocean to see genocide. I can take you down to the Fraser Homes and some of our public housing communities and into some of our rural communities here where genocide is literally occurring here in our community. Yes, it is. It is.
Let's just
I'm not.
Black lives teach you what genocide?
Yeah.
Let's let Dr.
So
finish.
again, when we go down into our neighborhoods in our communities in Georgia, where there's 80 to 90% childhood poverty, and those children do not have health care, they do not have access to food. Many of our children in our school district are dying. And they are achieving low levels of education because they just don't have enough to eat. And you know how I know that? I worked in the school system. I grew up in the school system and I have 2 children. I'm also a wife and a mother and a caretaker of aging parents who are aging in place in this community. So can definitely speak to that. Basically, the NRA has funded their lobby across this nation.
Right.
And the way to get gun laws and gun protection is to vote their candidates out.
Yes.
We've got to vote them out. And we've also got to make sure that we're totally educated about the amendment. It doesn't say that, limiting guns do not mean that we're taking away your right to have one.
Okay, thank you. Another candidate?
Just as much as we have to get rid of the NRA, we also have to.
I'm sorry, my name is Clark.
I'm sorry. Oh, for it.
So once again, I'm from Alabama. I grew up with guns in the house because my dad and my brother are both hunters. But my dad always preached about gun safety. Like he bought my mom a gun one time and wouldn't give her the magazine until after she'd read the entire manual and taken a safety course. Like these are common sense things. Like making sure that we are closing loopholes so guns don't end up in the wrong hands. Make sure that we bring back waiting periods. If you need a gun within the next 24 hours, you probably don't need it. You probably have no business. Like these are common sense things that I think the majority of people agree with. It's going to keep us safe, but when it comes to keeping our youth safe, it's not just about regulating guns, but it's also about making sure we have activities for them to be involved in. We're providing them opportunities. It's a multifaceted thing. I used to be a parole probation officer, and I remember there was this young man that I supervised. He was 19. And I remember talking with him because his friend had just been shot and killed in his neighborhood. And I remember he was terrified to go out. And then a couple of years later, I saw him in the news, and he was being charged with homicide because he had shot and killed someone. Because for some of these people, they feel like they don't have an option. They feel like that's their only way to be safe. So we want to make sure that we're giving people opportunities while also regulating firearms at the same time.
Thank you.
No, I was gonna say just as much as we need to get the NRA out of our politics, we also need to end Citizens United. And so, we have got to stop these folks who just want to make money off of death and destruction and guns. And they're doing it at the federal level. And we perverse what the Second Amendment is. It's the right to bear arms against your federal government.
Right.
We have turned it and capitalized on it in a way that is so awful that now it's causing mass death in this country. And so we also need to acknowledge and hold ourselves accountable for where we are with the gun violence in this country and think aggressively about how do we move forward. And I agree with Dr. Johnson, we need to vote them out of office.
Yeah.
Mr. Jackson.
So I love data. So I went to CDC and FBI. In Georgia alone, last year, 129 children between the ages of 1 to 17 died. 129 deaths right here. Children. between the ages of 1 to 17. So yes, we have a problem. And I always been advocating under that gold dome the last 10 years since I've been here. If legislation create this mess, we're gonna need legislation to get us out of this mess, right? There's no reason why military style weapons are just walking up and down our street.
Right.
It was designed for us in the Navy, in the Marine Corps, and Army, not here. In fact, one of my dear friends, he loves to go deer hunting. And I asked the question, Chris, I said, hey, where's your M16? He said, oh, I can't kill a deer with an M16. There won't be no meat.
Right.
So why do you have it?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have it, ladies and gentlemen? This is not about the Second Amendment, all right?
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It is not.
It's about powerful lobbyists.
It's about powerful lobbyists and money.
Mhm.
So I appreciate your question. And that's what you again, you all got to make the choice right now. Don't wait till 2026 who you want to be your governor. Make the decision now and get behind that candidate. Because if they start to see the strength of you all and your voice, or who you're going to back, right? They won't qualify come March. Because Burt Jones already told me he's going to carry out a Trump agenda. That's who I'm looking to run against.
Right.
And the wrong person on the Democratic side will lose against a Burt Jones. Derrick will not.
Okay, Ms. Nelson.
All right. While we are waiting on our state and while we're waiting on Washington, it is all of our responsibilities to continue to advocate for safe gun use. I think that locally we can be requesting or at least having conversations about more gun training, making it a requirement, just like we have to go and get our license renewed every few years. We need to make that a requirement or at least a conversation about it locally.
There you go.
So much. We're now going to do final remarks for 2 minutes. Mr. Jackson, I'm going to insist you go first, just so that we go in backward order. So,
It's okay, Chris. Well, first off, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. To come out on your evening such as this, to spend 2 hours, this warms my heart. As one that recited the oath 17 times, 12 times while I was in the Navy, and 5 times since I've been a state elected official under that gold dome. The oath doesn't have an expiration with me, though. It doesn't. Because when the oath it means something to me when I think about all of us as I crisscross 159 counties, 537 cities, and meeting everyone where you are, right? That's why I'm working very, very hard, because I realize if I don't, who will? The other side already told us what they're going to do. It goes back to Dr. Johnson's point, right? And so we have to step up. We have great candidates right now. We don't need to wait, right? Boots on the ground is not a catchy phrase for me. It's not a theme song. It's not a line dance. Georgians are dying preventable deaths. And so when I think about my wife, my 7 children, and I think about this Project 2025, they're executing exactly what they wanted to do, Chris. They want to make us sick. They want to make us dumb. They want to make us poor. And they want to make us powerless. They're stripping away our rights, right? And we often said, nothing's going to happen to Roe v. Wade. Nothing's going to happen to affirmative action. Nothing's going to happen to Civil Rights Act. Nothing's going to happen to Voting Rights Act. Wake up.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in October is going to gut Section 2.
Yeah.
They gut Section 5 in 2013. Now they're coming back to clean it up. Section 2, you don't have to Google it, I'm going to tell you. You will not be able to have a lawsuit against discrimination. They want to alleviate the 19th Amendment. You know the 19th Amendment, women? Because you are the largest voting bloc. You all are showing up. So they want to turn back the hands of time, and that's the reason why I need to be the 84th governor in Georgia. Go to voteDerrickJackson.org.
Yeah. Again, my name is Dr. Alicia Johnson. I'm a systems thinker, a transformational servant leader and a steadfast advocate for working families across Georgia, whether you're in a rural area or urban area. I've spent my career tackling the tough issues, improving Medicaid, expanding access to healthcare, fighting poverty, and ensuring public dollars serve public good. And so I bring that over 30 years of experience building partnerships, holding power accountable, and delivering results that uplift communities, not just corporate profits. I've been endorsed by 8 advocacy organizations to include Jane Fonda's Climate Impact, Climate Cabinet, Working Families Party, the Asian Advocacy Fund, Galileo, and several other organizations that are both state and have both state and national impact. And the reason I earn those endorsements is because I care and I show up. And so I'm asking you to do the same on November 4th. You can find out more about me, contribute to the campaign at Alicia4Georgia.com. And I am available to answer your questions personally. You can also reach out to me there. But make sure you are voting on November 4th. It's the only statewide election in this race. The Public Service Commission is the only statewide election, and it's an opportunity to seed the ground for both the governor's race and the Ossoff race, which is going to be held to bear in 2026. So show up, bring 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 of your friends to the ballot box, and let's take our rage to the ballot box on November 4th.
As I said in the beginning, my name is Amanda Hollowell, and I'm working to be your Congresswoman. And I think it's very important that we have someone who's been doing over a decade's worth of work of pressuring and doing advocacy from the outside, but also a person who wants to go and do the inside game. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring power, policy, and progress back to the 1st Congressional District. I want people to understand and feel that they are represented by somebody that cares about them and that knows the pain points that they have, but also the good points, and making sure that those last and then the other ones go away. And I think at the end of the day, when we think about candidates that we need and that we want them to have that experience at the Hill. We want them to know what it's like to push policy and to advocate and to hear people's stories and to center people. And that's what I really want to do. And I'm so excited about this journey. I've been asked for a long time to run for office, and I finally said yes, because the timing was right. It was right because people are ready. Folks are ready for a change, and they're ready to listen. And they want to get out of this. I'm telling you, I go across the country, people do not want to live like this. Mm-hmm. This is not what they voted for. But we need to give them something to vote for. And I want to do that. I want to take the time to put people first back in the 1st Congressional District. And I thank you. My website is Amanda, Forga, AmandaForGeorgia.com. Thank you.
Good evening again and good night. We've come a long way, 2 hours later. Again, I am Gabrielle Nelson, better known as Gabby. Website is www.gabbynelson.com. That is Gabby. I am Gabby with a Y, not an IE. Find me there. Meet me there. You can contribute to the campaign there. You can also volunteer there. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm already out working. I'm already out canvassing. If you want to volunteer on this campaign, I would be forever grateful. And I would also be grateful for your vote on November 4th. I am your accessible leader. I am your modern woman, your modern mom, and your modern voter. I am just like you. I sit in traffic with you. I go to the grocery store with you. And believe me, I am doing the work every day and every evening, whether it's at home or whether it is up here on a panel. We are giving back. I am giving back, and I am asking you, please get out and vote. Vote your conscience, but vote for me.
Once again, my name is Kendra Clark. I'm running for Georgia House District 165. And like I said, I'm working to make sure that your voices are heard. I'm not taking any money from real estate developers or big corporations or SCAD, because I want to make sure I'm answering to you and not any of them, because you're the person who matters. I want to make sure that we have not only a government, but an economy that works for the working class. And the thing is, though, is all of us can get elected, and we still can't do it alone. This also takes you. Part of this budget bill is going to decimate our nonprofits. So if you have the ability to donate, if you have the ability to volunteer, like, they need your assistance. Because we have to do this all together. It takes our whole community to make Savannah better. And you can find me on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. That's all Vote Kendra Clark. And my website will be up shortly. We ran into some issues, but it'll be votekendraclark.com. Hopefully it'll be up by the end of the week. And I just want to use, because I've got 60 seconds left, I also just want to use this as a point of privilege to also let you know about currently Yamakra Village, which is one of our oldest public housing units, there's a demolition application. Okay with the demolition, but the residents of Yamakra has formed a residents council and is currently asking for the community support. They're asking for very basic things like a right to return. They're asking for assistance with relocation. There's a petition that they put out. I can get you the link, get you the QR code if you're interested in signing, because they need the community backing them when they go to the housing authority on September 10th. So I would love you to be able to support them. Because that's something real and actionable you can do to help with housing immediately here in Savannah.
Thank you so much. I want to thank our honored guests once again. Thank you so much for taking these questions from our community members and for giving us your time. We really, really, really appreciate it. And again, I cannot thank you all enough for coming out here, and repeatedly, I see so many returning faces, and it always brings me hope. So I hope it does the same for you. This is a long marathon for us all, but it reinvigorates me every single time. I hope it does the same for you.